to seem that I may forget the precious Lamb of God. Now behold the Lamb.
Go ahead.
The precious Lamb of God. Born into sin that I may live again. The precious. That's right. That's right.
Hallelujah.
We feel your presence, Lord. Thank you.
Had a vision for 20 in the morning. Thinking of my little sisters in the morning. Struggling with realities, no melodies. Holidays ain't the same, everything's changed. No Bowie, no Prince, and no Michael, no Andre Crouch and the Disciples, no Walter, Edwin or Deborah Coley, no Whitney, no George Michael. Toys R Us gone bankrupt. Damn, they could toss it and went bankrupt. Everything from my childhood's missing, man. Man, I swear it's such a fucked up feeling, man. I'm the man, it's a simple observation. And I'm not sad, but it's not a celebration. I'm just trying to put the pieces back together, man. Everything's falling through my fingers like sand. It seems the tighter that I'm gripping. It seems the more that I am slipping. I feel like I lost everything I love. And where's this the legend of God be loved? And churches ain't the same. Gospel music just ain't the same. R&B it just ain't the same. But y'all keep telling me it's the same. But I ain't feeling nothing, damn it. And I don't wanna reach up and grab it. Shots fired into Duncan. Always knew they were up to something. This ain't no future when you're frontin'. And y'all know you still out here fool. I'm not a baby, bro, I'm grown. Don't leave me standing out here alone. That's why I wrote this song. Because I know I'm not alone. What are we out here doing? What are we out here saying? People don't care no more. So forget I don't care no more. This is too much for you to handle. I was always too much to handle. There ain't nothing new about me. You don't want authenticity. You don't want sincerity. 2020 brought me clarity. Now I see who you really are. I took a hit for the team. Took a bullet for the dream that we would one day all be free, free from prejudice, free from sexism, free from bigotry. I die for creativity, I die for freedom to be free. I died and left a legacy. Oh, but baby, I still live through technology. After the sun, comes the rain. And after the storm, the sun will start shining. What is the pain? And tears of pain. And tears of pain. And a dash of struggle, just be patient. Your destiny will manifest. Yes, focus in the center.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Hope everybody doing well on this Saturday evening. SATURDAY night. ASA. What's going on, y'all? We are back with part 2 of Kristi Burke breaking down the upcoming Christian nationalism by giving us the origins of it. Okay? You never know where you're going unless you understand how you got here. Okay, you'll never know what's ahead if you don't learn from the past. So shout out to her. We want to utilize her, again, commentary so that she can also get the so that we can share her information about what is happening. Again, shout out to the people who have context and nuance. Shout out to the people who do not create clickbait titles for no fucking reason. Shout out to the people who actually do their due deals and show up with the information and are so willing to be about the truth that they're willing to be wrong. Okay? Now, before we get off into that, we always have to be smart here. Excuse me. Let me pull it up real quick. 1 second. Boom. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All the videos, songs, images, and graphics used in this live belong to their respective owners, and BubzDaGawd does not claim any rights over them. Okay, 1 second. All right. What's going on? Me and my big ass forehead say hello, bitch. What's going on? Okay. Hope everybody doing well. Okay, we are back with yet part 2, girl, of the Christian national agenda, girl. The gay agenda ain't got shit on this. The black agenda ain't got shit on this. The women's agenda ain't got shit on this. The anti-war shit ain't got shit on this, baby. These people have been strategic for the longest time. They have had the resources. They have had the people. And now they're in a positions of power to now bring forth, okay, to bring forth their version of America that looks a certain way that does not have the majority of us in mind. Okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into part 2. Make sure y'all go ahead and subscribe to Kristi Burke's channel, especially if you want to become more educated about Christian nationalism. She also has other amazing, wonderful content on her channel as well. Her content comes from being a ex-Christian, since there's ex-gays and stuff, ex-Christian who understands the organized aspect of Christianity, not the loving, nurturing aspect. That's why she's doing the work she's doing now, to tap into that. But she was connected to the organized aspect of it that was there to teach people to obey and to follow what we say. Do not think for yourself. Do not challenge authority. Okay? Do not study to show thyself approved. And even if you do, your own understanding is not greater than ours. Do you get what I'm saying? So she's exposing all of that so that people can actually be free from shit, transform their lives and become better, and we can actually help to heal and mend the issues of humanity that we all are dealing with. Okay? So again, shout out to her. Let's go ahead and get into part 2 of Christian nationalism.
I have been wanting to make this episode for so long, and we're finally here. When I tell you that this deep dive on Christian nationalism has been my obsession, I mean it. The other day, I woke up from a dream where I was just repeating places and names and dates related to this project. So this has been the only thing on my mind, and I'm really eager to finally share with you everything that I've learned. If you haven't seen the first episode, I talked about the founding fathers and whether or not they intended to institute a Christian nation. Then we kind of talked about how Christianity fueled the westward expansion and the destruction that came with it. And now we're going to fast forward to the mid-20th century. And throughout that entire time, Christian nationalism was persisting. It was just growing with the times. And the Bible was perpetually used to defend a lot of terrible things in our American history. And I don't think that we should ignore that. But from where I'm standing, what really fueled the modern day culture wars and political divide that I'm seeing between the left and the right was this turn of the century, this time when the evangelicals teamed up with the Republicans or the conservatives, and they got married, and they created this kind of crazy, huge superpower that took over the minds of American people. And it was from this point that I think so much of our modern day division was born from. And that's just my opinion, but I'm going to take you through it, and you can decide at the end of this what you think. Okay, so I think we need to set the stage, and I really don't think that we can talk about the rise of Christian nationalism without talking about the Cold War. And the Cold War was a period of global geopolitical tension and struggle for ideological and economic influence between the United States and the Soviet Union, USSR. And the term Cold War is actually used because there was no direct fighting between the two superpowers, though each supported opposing sides in major regional conflicts known as proxy wars. The struggle for dominance was expressed indirectly via psychological warfare, propaganda campaigns, espionage, far-reaching embargoes, sports diplomacy, and technological competitions such as the space race. Now, because there was this kind of rising threat of authoritarian style communism, which kind of feels like an oxymoron to me, but because there was this kind of rising threat, the United States felt like they needed to kind of fight this and to keep communism from taking over the entire world. They were afraid that if these countries fell to communism that were surrounding the Soviet Union, that eventually it would just kind of spread out into the rest of the world, and the United States would eventually fall to it as well. So the United States used a political strategy called containment, and this was pursued during the Cold War to prevent the spread of communism. The goal was to go out into the world and to keep other nations from falling to communism so that we could kind of stop the spread. So this was an ideological battle. It was not just about land or being overrun. It was about keeping the threat of communism away from the United States because we had developed our own system. We liked our capitalism. We liked our free market. And we did not want to entertain the thought of communism. It was inherently godless.
Godless culture.
And the United States was not a godless country. And I think it's really important to remember as we talk about these things, something very important, which is that two things can be true. Not enough people live with that mentality. And I was not a person who lived like that for a long time. We tend to think in black and white, absolute thinking, but two things really can be true at the same time. While the political philosophy of communism did lead to authoritarian regimes, Americans were also fed a very steady diet of exaggerated fears and propaganda. And what we started doing is portraying anything that strayed from traditional American ways as communist, evil, bad, dangerous. And communism wasn't just a geopolitical threat. It was an atheistic moral danger, which is
Christianity or communism, which? So even though there was a war and this threat, what's up, boy Crazy? What's going on? Glad to have you here. Make sure you hit the like button. Appreciate you. Now there are these pseudo threats and ideas being manufactured to give to the American people to again keep them fighting with each other. And it's funny that this particular thing keeps popping up, which is Christianity. That is like the common denominator in this whole situation here. Just wanted to point that out. That's very interesting.
How it was framed. Again, this became a war of ideology. And instead of framing the threat accurately, which there was a threat, there was a concern, but instead of framing it accurately, politicians and political leaders found it a lot easier to kind of play the blame game. And instead of blaming the real problem, the regimes that were abusing their power, the United States took a different approach. It is because of our moral decline that we have fallen victim to this communist atheist threat. And so we have to get right with God as a nation in order to fight it. It became a spiritual battle.
Proper way then to look upon communism is to see in it a judgment of God.
In the 1950s, according to Gallup surveys, over 90% of the adult population identified as Christian. So it's very easy to see how a campaign against communism could kind of be turned into a campaign against an atheistic moral threat when the people that you're instilling this fear in are already afraid of an atheistic moral threat. I mean, this is why we added "In God We Trust" to our dollar. This is why we added "Under God" to our pledge. "In God We Trust" is the official motto of the United States, but it was adopted by U.S. Congress in 1956. And at the same time, the words "Under God" were added to the Pledge of Allegiance. This was a symbol of America standing with God. And it was a symbol that we were a people of faith, and we were standing against regimes that were faithless. And so this period was actually called the Red Scare.
Or did not believe in what we believe in the way that we believe it. Because again, there are queer people who do believe in God in reference to organized religion and Christianity, who still are being told that their way of believing in God is not real, that you have to renounce that part of who you are in order for our God to talk to you. So very interesting.
And it was the second Red Scare. The first one was earlier in the 1900s. And a Red Scare is a form of moral panic provoked by fear of the rise, supposed or real, of leftist ideologies in a society, especially communism and socialism. Historically, Red Scares have led to mass political persecution, scapegoating, and the ousting of those in government positions who have had connections with left-wing or far-left ideology. The second Red Scare occurred after World War II, this is what we're talking about now, and is known as McCarthyism after its best-known advocate, Senator Joseph McCarthy. McCarthyism coincided with an increased and widespread fear of communist espionage that was consequent of the increasing tension in the Cold War. McCarthy stirred up further fear in the United States of communists infiltrating the country by saying that communist spies were omnipresent. In 1950, Joseph McCarthy addressed the Senate, citing 81 separate cases, and made accusations against suspected communists. Although he provided little or no evidence, this prompted the Senate to call for a full investigation. He started targeting people in Hollywood and federal employees, and he caused a lot of people to lose their jobs, and he ruined a lot of lives. And so this prompted the Lavender Scare, which was moral panic about
Now listen to this, y'all. This is for the faggots. Listen.
homosexual people in the United States government, which led to their mass dismissal from government service during the mid-20th century. It contributed to and paralleled an anti-communist campaign, which is known as McCarthyism, and the Second Red Scare. Gay men and lesbians were said to be a national security risk and communist sympathizers, which led to the call to remove them from state employment. It was thought that gay people were more susceptible to being manipulated, which could pose a threat to the country. Now, none of this was true, of course.
You have people who don't even collectively know what the fuck they believe in. There's 22,000 different denominations. Gonna sit up here and create this narrative around queer people and actually believe it. And then when you're asked to provide the cold facts, because whatever in the ethers has to fucking manifest in the physical realm, it never manifests, then what happens? Y'all don't prove anything. But the fucked up part is that y'all ain't got to prove it to us. Y'all prove it to yourselves, and then y'all give yourselves permission to do what y'all gonna do to queer people, and then have the cognitive dissonance to be able to say that God said to do it. That if you don't do it, you are on the wrong side of God, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of God. And again, it's not the God of love, the God that truly understands all things, its ways, not your ways, and vice versa. It's the God of this world that y'all call Lucifer. That sounds very Luciferian. To force people to believe what you believe. But don't they have the free will and free choice to choose? But now you can kind of force queer people, and as you will also understand later on in this video, this live, black people to fall in line with this ideology and to conform, because if you speak against it, terrible, horrible things will happen to you. It's the God y'all believe, all right. It's the God of fear.
And it turned out to be a completely unnecessary culture war, and caused a lot of people to lose their jobs, and it ruined a lot of lives. So here are American people who are just trying to live their lives, but they're being told that there is this authoritarian communist takeover all throughout the world, and they're coming for us, and we need to fight back. And the only way to fight back is if we get spiritually right with God, is if we stand as a nation under God fighting atheistic communism. And this brings me to Billy Graham, who once said, either communism must die or Christianity must die, because it is actually a battle between Christ and Antichrist. Billy Graham was an American evangelist. He was an ordained Southern Baptist minister and a civil rights advocate. We'll get to that one in a minute. Whose broadcasts and world tours featuring live sermons became well known in the mid to late 20th century. Throughout his career spanning over 6 decades, Graham rose to prominence as an evangelical Christian figure in the United States and abroad. kind of going back to our first episode where we talked about this kind of romanticization of cowboy culture, the rugged, masculine, good-looking cowboy that's out to save the world. I think Graham really kind of fit into this picture of what a Christian man was supposed to look like and act like. He was good-looking, he was hyper masculine, he was very charismatic and very bold in his faith. And Graham actually admitted that before he got saved, he believed that religion was quote unquote for sissies.
Girl, what else do you need to hear? Before he got into religion, he thought religion was for faggots. Girl, only faggots do that, girl. You hear it now. Oh, there's only faggots in the black church. The black church is led by the faggots. The faggots, 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 the faggots. Here they are. Just like how Donald Trump said, if I were going to run for any party, it would be the Republicans because they're stupid. That is what he said. Girl, you can't blame nobody else anymore when you finally realize that people play in your face. When people start playing in your face, bitch, it is now your responsibility to figure out why you allowing them to play in your face. Wow.
And that he was just more concerned with playing his sports than being a Christian. But he did eventually get saved. He became a born-again Christian, and then he started preaching all over the country. But I really want to address this claim on Wikipedia that he was a civil rights activist. He was actually close friends with Martin Luther King Jr. And at the beginning, there was a time when he would have these segregated audiences at his sermons, and he would go down into the audience and he would remove the rope that separated the black audience from the white audience. So he was doing things that were very progressive for his time, and I think it's important that we recognize that. But with Billy Graham, he truly believed, like with everything else, that racism was a heart problem. It was not a systemic issue. It wasn't a government issue. It was something in the hearts of people. And that if we could just kind of change the hearts of people and bring everybody back to Jesus, that we would have no more racism.
And you would think that would be the answer. What's up, Deshaun? You was watching a YouTuber named Jerome Thug Love Jones. What type of OnlyFans shit is that? Excuse me. Girl, this damn smoking. Excuse me. I want to say this real quick. I know I just lost my thought, but bitch, I'm going with the flow. There was another pastor, just came to my head, who also was an individual who was into civil rights and caring for the rights of black people. I'm trying to remember his name's on the tip of my tongue right now. I'm trying to think of it. It was a church that he had. Fred Phelps. Is it Fred Phelps? I feel like Fred Phelps is the damn. Is it Michael Phelps? Hold on, let me make sure. But anyway, he was a pastor who was very, very anti-gay. Very. Had a whole website he created called GodHatesFags.com, girl. He was letting gays know, you're going to hell, right? You going to hell, you will have AIDS and everything. You going to hell, you know that, right? Just straight up in your face. So it's funny, these people who say they're champions for the oppressed and champions for God and being voice pieces for God and for love and for Christ, that they sit up here and demonize the fuck out the people that Christ has called for them to love. Girl, but then feel some type of way when it's their turn to be judged, girl. The fuck? But hold on, I think it's Fred Phelps. Hold on. Fred Phelps. Yes, it's him. Fred Phelps. This motherfucker here, girl. You see him? Do you see him? Girl, do you see him? Baby, he was calling the gays out and everything, but whenever he got critiqued, well, I marched with the black people, I marched with the niggers, I marched with them, I was there with them trying to walk with them.
And so because of this, he really opposed the idea of utilizing the federal government to enforce civil rights. He just thought that we needed to work within the communities and get people to stop being racist. And I think maybe at first he had really good intentions. And that because of his ideologies, because of his worldview, he just saw a different way. And I don't know that going across America and getting everybody to be Christian was going to be the way to cure racism, since there were a lot of Christians who were supporting segregation at the time. But that is what he believed. And, you know, and so I consider that when I think about Billy Graham and his support or lack of support as time went on, because he just saw things differently. But it doesn't mean that what he did was right. And it gets a little worse as time goes on. In 1958, Billy Graham preached a sermon where he was arranged to be introduced by Texas State Governor Price Daniel, who was a loud and proud voice in favor of maintaining segregation laws. And while campaigning in 1956, he often denounced forced integration, as he called it, and promised to use his power as governor to preserve segregation. And so he was being arranged to be introduced or to introduce Billy Graham at his sermon in 1958. Now, this obviously is going to cause tensions between Billy Graham and his friend Martin Luther King Jr. And Martin Luther King actually wrote to Billy Graham a few days before this sermon. And he said, "If Governor Daniels identifies with you on the eve of the Democratic primary, July 26th, in which Mr. Daniel is seeking re-election, it can be well interpreted as your endorsement of racial segregation and discrimination." I mean, he's not really wrong. Imagine being in Martin Luther King Jr.'s shoes. You're friends with a very, very famous, popular evangelical pastor who is quite ahead of his time and removing the ropes so that he can integrate his audience. And then you find out that Billy Graham is working alongside a governor who is actively fighting against desegregation. And in 1963, Martin Luther King penned what is now a famous letter from the jail in Birmingham, Alabama. And in it, he expressed frustrations with the fact that even though his movement was nonviolent, it was being met with a lot of violence. And he said, "You deplore the demonstrations that are presently taking place in Birmingham, but I am sorry that your statement did not express a similar concern for the conditions that brought the demonstrations into being. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." And in response to this letter, Billy Graham said that he needed to pump the brakes. And at this point, Billy Graham, like many other evangelicals at the time, white evangelicals at the time, believed that the civil rights movement was just going too far, that they didn't need to ask the government to intervene, that was just a step in the wrong direction, and that we just needed to keep, trying to change the hearts of people. And so meanwhile, while Black people are being discriminated against, while children are being mobbed by dogs and sprayed with water cannons, you have these white evangelicals that are like, well, we just need to keep praying and, preaching, and eventually things will change. But, don't get violent. Don't go against the government. No, we don't want the civil disobedience. And don't expect the government to come in and help you. We've got to fix this on our own. And so that's just...
That is the most narcissistic ass way of responding to people's cries for injustice. Now, if Billy Graham was really about that motherfucking life like he said he was, as far as changing the hearts and, oh, well, why are you working alongside this person who is actively engaged in racism and wants to keep racism going and keeping that as the fabric of this fucking country? Because, again, it's the fabric of this fucking country. You would think him saying, you know what, if I can change the heart, because I'm pretty sure he was down south, if I could change the heart of this racist man right here, if I just deal with the head bully of all the bullies, okay, then all the other bullies will fall into line, and then Jesus will come in with his loving arms and his hands and lay them on the people, and the people will say, "What must I do to be saved?" You know what would have been the perfect time for white people who were Christian, who believed in what Billy Graham was saying, going beyond just the performative aspect of removing the line. But when them black people were sprayed with water hoses and dogs sicked on them, white people should have been standing in the gap and putting their motherfucking life on the line, just like how Jesus did for all of us. That is a form of disrespect and a slap in the face to people who don't have the resources and the reach that Billy Graham does, who then brings his motherfucking ass to the damn cookout uninvited and said that he gonna help us, just for him to send a letter and say, look, y'all going a little too far because now you're trying to get the government involved. We're trying to change the hearts of the people. What do you mean the hearts of the people? How are you changing the people's hearts? What is in their hearts that needs to change? If it's racism, then guess what? Then it seems like it's white people's job to combat racism because y'all the ones that started this. Maybe white people need to be more accountable about what the fuck their forefathers did. Get out their bubble of fear and actually look at the objective reality and say, you know what? We have to help change this, because at the end of the day, even though I don't have slaves and I didn't own slaves, you are in some way, shape, or form still benefiting from the privilege and the overflow that came from your forefathers who were slave owners. Oh, there were black people who was too. Yeah, because white men was fucking black slaves too. So of course you're gonna have some mixed children who gonna choose their whiteness as opposed to learning how to accept both the white and the black. It's black, it's white. Let me look at y'all comments, girl. Because I think I found my persona, girl. When I go like this, bitch, I ain't looking, girl. It is what it is. Damn it. Deshaun comment says, and we'll get back into the video, but what I don't understand is people think that God will cure homosexuality. How come they didn't cure racism for these white people that's in these Catholic churches? Because they want to give it to some invisible deity that they don't even fucking understand, girl, and allow him to do that so that I don't have to. I don't have to. That's like an excuse to pass it off to him. No, 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 no. You still got to do your part. You still have to do your part. You can't sit up here and benefit from all this motherfucking privilege and then be afraid to deal with the karma, because in y'all book it says the sins of your mother and father will fall down into the children until somebody, and it's always normally the black sheeps, that come through and break the motherfucking chain of bullshit. And some of those black sheeps are faggots, are women, are people who are oppressed, or the people that are not part of the collective fold. But again, according to the narrative, he has sheeps of other folds too, and he'll go after that sheep. Y'all motherfuckers won't. Deshaun also says, why can't he stop racism from happening, but then say you can't stop racism, then you can't stop homosexuality then? Because they think that stopping homosexuality, that's going to give them freaking go-to points, girl. What? But they can't stop anything else I've seen that's going on. Like, give me a break here. They only pick and choose what's convenient for them and allow things to happen, like they allow racism to happen. They allow pedophilia of heterosexuality to happen because they'll sweep it under the rug like they've always been doing, because they're bringing back this organized religion. Yeah, and we're gonna see how much sexual abuse is gonna be happening in the church. If the church was really real, the church would check itself first. Because isn't that what Christ's gonna check when he comes back? Is to see what the hell the church been up to first? Because the world gonna be the world. What have you been doing to spread love to the world? And baby, it's gonna be a bunch of motherfucking crickets in there. So we're all the way back in 1955 again. These people have blood on their hands for creating this ideal of everything else that's going on, creating narcissistic utopia of hiding what's going on behind the veil was hidden to keep everyone to be quiet, to make everyone be quiet, and to keep them quiet of what's going on, even in families. Boy, Crazy says that's savagery. Deshaun says this is absolutely ridiculous. Girl. Okay, Deshaun, girl. Give ChatGTP or whatever a break a little bit. And I'm not even done yet. How come they don't try to call out those damn pastors and priests and everything else that's be messing with the children that's up in the churches? God sees them, but y'all don't. Yeah, and the reason why is because, again, organized religion has told people, or those that want to be in positions of power in these churches, to say, hey, let me hold the keys for you, because the keys too heavy. You can't handle the responsibility of the keys. Let me hold the keys to your salvation real quick, and I can tell you what you can do to be able to get to heaven, girl. And the gag is, you have to die to receive it. Meanwhile, the people who are telling you that you have to die to receive it are living it right now.
Really a slap in the face to the entire movement when you see that there are people that are being treated incredibly cruelly and unfairly, and that you don't think it's a good idea for the government to step in to protect them, even though that same government protects you from being harassed and discriminated against. It just seems really unfair, and it was a very privileged position for a lot of evangelical Christians to take. The thing is, I don't think that Billy Graham had bad intentions most of the time, at least not at first. I think that he was deeply indoctrinated. I think he was guided more by religious thinking, and he was shaped by a worldview of magical solutions rather than actual tangible realities. There's a quote in Jesus and John Wayne about this kind of waning of support from white evangelical Christians for civil rights. And it says, by backing away from their support for civil rights, evangelicals like Graham ended up giving cover to more extremist sentiments within the insurgent religious right. I think that Billy Graham wanted to see change. I really do, but I think he was blinded by his religious ideologies. He was blinded by his fear of communism and his distrust of the government. And he cared more about preaching his religious message than he did about the lives and the well-being of his own friends and the people he claimed to love in the name of Jesus. And to me, this perfectly illustrates a lot of modern Christians that don't want to stand for civil rights, that don't want to involve themselves in the woke agenda, as a lot of them say, because they just don't feel like the government needs to be involved in protecting gay people, protecting Black people, protecting women, protecting those that are vulnerable. A lot of people just don't think that we need to involve the government in that. And I just think that this is a perfect mirror of what we're seeing today. So many people that are apathetic or even resistant to social change within our government. Because I think a lot of them refuse to accept that there is a systemic problem a lot of the time. And I would just like to point out before we move on from Billy Graham that according to several reports, his worth when he died was about $25 million. So, but I think if we just take all of the information leading up to our next segment, that America was experiencing a threat. And whether or not that threat was real, a lot of people were afraid. And the government had done a really good job of instilling this atheistic communist fear within the hearts and minds of American people. Here you have preachers like Billy Graham coming in. They are affirming these fears and they are providing a solution. They're saying, we are in danger and there is a solution. It's Jesus. And you just got to get on your knees. You got to pray. You got to accept Jesus, live like a Christian, and all of this will go away. And so we can see how it was very easy for people to kind of cling to this hope, to cling to the salvation that this ideology offered from the fear of communism, the fear of atheism. The American people were primed for the rise of the religious right. Which brings us to Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell was an American Baptist pastor, televangelist, and conservative activist. He was founding pastor of the Thomas Road Baptist Church, which was a megachurch in Lynchburg, Virginia. He founded Lynchburg Christian Academy in 1967 and founded Liberty University in 1971. He also co-founded The Moral Majority. Now, I found a senior thesis by Catherine Legg. This is on the Liberty University Digital Library website. And so I thought it would be fair to share directly from the source, Liberty University. Now, according to the thesis, Falwell expressed in his biography that he was raised in the segregated South and his father was a local businessman who supported segregation in business, but was very friendly and civil with fellow Black residents. He was a product of his time. In 1956, at only 22 years old, he founded Thomas Road Baptist Church. He said that while he allowed Black attendees, they could not access church membership. He said they would not think to join and we would not think to ask them. And I think it's so important to recognize the cognitive dissonance that it takes, that you have to exist within to be a Christian pastor, getting on a pulpit, preaching from the Bible, which has a lot of ideas in it, but it definitely says in there you got to love your neighbor and be kind, and love is the fulfillment of the law, while actively denying membership to people because of their race. It says, besides the sermons Falwell preached on segregation, he was also the chaplain of the Lynchburg chapter of the Defenders of State Sovereignty and Individual Liberty, which was a state organization that supported segregation and the massive resistance policy. He also publicly stated that he questioned the sincerity of Martin Luther King Jr. and believed his movement was the result of left-wing communist ideologies. In the early 1960s, Falwell helped distribute anti-Martin Luther King Jr. literature furnished by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. In 1958, 4 years after Brown versus Board of Education, Falwell preached a sermon entitled Segregation or Integration, which he stated that chaos resulted from the Brown ruling, and we have left God out of decisions altogether. If Chief Justice Warren and his associates had known God's word and had desired to do the Lord's will, I am quite confident that the 1954 decision would never have been made. Finally, we see the devil himself behind it. What will integration of the races do to us? It will destroy our race eventually. I can't tell you how many times.
And this is coming from the mouth of a Caucasian person who is low-key putting her whiteness and her privilege that comes with being white on the line to educate other people about what's going on. And this is shit, since y'all love talking about shit from the past and thousands of years ago, and they said in this book and that book and that book. But look at what's also been said back in those days as well, especially in more recent years with the civil rights movement. That whenever these groups of people decide to rise and ascend without our permission and in the way that we have set for them, we have to bring them down and break them down and put them back in line. Because if these people become too conscious or too woke, our game of manipulation is over. And not only that, karma, judgment, justice is now coming our way. That's what I mean. They pimp this whole idea of Christianity in reference to calling it Jesus. And the Christ energy and love, that's to bring you in. That's to coax you in. Oh, you'll find love here. You'll find acceptance here. Jesus will meet you where you are. And then when you get in and you're part of the group now, baby, that facade falls apart and we start seeing the true, genuine reality of what be going on in these fucking churches. But the unspoken rule of Christianity and organized religion is, just pretend like you got it together. Just act like you got your shit together. Dance hard as hell on Sunday. Go in the spirit, girl. Fall into it. Sing the right notes. Play the right chords, bitch. Do all of that. Speak to them to make them feel good about how God gonna get my house in the car if you just do this and whoop, 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 instead of trying to teach people how to heal themselves, to tap into the God themselves, the one that will never leave nor forsake. It's not about that. It's about the God of power, the God of control, the God of domination. That's Luciferian ass shit. They're trying to conquer other people in the name of the God they believe in. And for these next 4 years, we will definitely see which God that is. That's why for the people who are Christians, who are true members of the body of Christ, who really care about humanity in the way that Christ did, baby, y'all got hella work to do. We gonna see who the real Christians are, or the fake ones. And baby, there are so many fake ones. So many fake ones.
Times I have had people tell me that racism is not Christian and that racism is directly from Satan and that Satan encourages people to be hateful, not Christianity. But here we have in the 1960s a Baptist preacher claiming that integration was from the devil. He genuinely believed it was God's will to keep people segregated. And I think that's really important that we remember. That it wasn't just a thing that America was doing and the Christians opposed it. No, the Christians were supporting it. Not all Christians, but the Baptists, Southern Christians, a lot of Christians were supporting segregation. And they believed that it was evil to integrate races. Because of his strong support of segregation, he founded the Liberty Christian Academy in 1967. Liberty Christian Academy is a private Christian school in Lynchburg, Virginia, founded in 1967 by Baptist preacher Jerry Falwell as a ministry of Thomas Road Baptist Church and a segregation academy. Segregation academies were founded after the Brown versus Board of Education ruling, where the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to separate children by their race in public schools. And so they got rid of segregation in public schools, and immediately these segregation academies, as they were called, started popping up all over the place. And these were private Christian-run schools that were segregated because Christians wanted to maintain segregation. And so they had to find a way to make sure that their children weren't going to schools where they might mix with other races. Now, because these were religious organizations and they were private Christian schools, they received tax exempt status. So they could make all the money they wanted to, maintain segregation, and they never had to pay taxes on that because they were technically like a church. But in 1970, the IRS announced that they were going to be removing the tax exempt status from these segregation academies, and that in order to maintain their tax exempt status, they had to integrate their schools. There's a lot building in the evangelical communities over this because they really saw this as an overreach, government overreach into their religious schools. This was a violation of religious freedom. And to put this into context, in 1962, the Supreme Court agreed that school-led prayer violated the First Amendment. And so they removed prayer from the schools, as a lot of Christians like to say. And I remember growing up as a kid and being told by my grandparent that, everything went to hell when they removed prayer from schools. And I remember thinking that they made it illegal for prayer to be in schools or for you to pray. And it actually wasn't until I think I became an adult that I realized that that was not the case. They took prayer out of schools. They removed God from the classroom, when what they really did was decide that we couldn't favor a specific religion in the classroom. It wasn't fair. It wasn't constitutional. And so we were no longer allowed to use the school to lead prayers. A teacher couldn't lead a Christian prayer in front of the class. It is not an attack on your religious freedom to say that in a public tax-funded classroom, a teacher can't favor a specific religion. But because this is what was going on at the time, you have prayer being removed from schools, and now you have these Christian segregation academies that are losing their tax exempt status. And so people like Jerry Falwell were angry. They felt like there was this serious attack. And I think that paired with the fears that had already fueled all of this leading up in the Cold War about this atheistic communism, this decline of morality. And then you have the schools removing prayer to the evangelical Christian. This just looked like a domino effect. It was a slippery slope and it was happening really fast. Even though the IRS announced this removal of tax-exempt status in segregation academies, it was a long battle to actually implement this new rule. And so there were years of just battling between these segregation academies and the IRS, and Jerry Falwell was at the center of all of it. And he really started kind of mobilizing Christians for his cause and talking about this government overreach and getting people really fired up about the violation of religious freedom in America. And although Falwell was gaining popularity when it came to segregation, he was fighting a losing battle. Times were changing, social attitudes about race were progressing, and the majority of Americans didn't support segregation, so he couldn't rally enough support behind his cause. And I actually wrote back here on my Try Erase board that through 1970 to 1980, Jerry Falwell was really pissed and nobody really cared. But that's not actually true, because he actually ran a television and radio show from his church starting in 1956 called Old Time Gospel Hour. And this program was very popular and lucrative. And it's reported that by the early 80s, it was bringing in over $90 million. $90 million. So Falwell had good reason to stay relevant, okay? When all of this was going on, he's like fighting against the IRS and he's defending segregation, but America is just trying to move on. He needed to cling to relevance. And we're going to get to that. But I want to talk for a minute about what was going on at the same time that Jerry was fighting with the IRS. The Supreme Court ruled in 1973 that the Constitution protected a woman's right to an abortion. Roe v. Wade. Now, this case was recently overturned, but in a Gallup poll from August 1972, just months before Roe v. Wade, found that 64% of Americans, including a majority of Roman Catholics, believed that the decision to have an abortion should be left solely to the woman and her doctor. Abortion was primarily seen as a Catholic issue, and evangelical Christians were not as heavily involved in the debate. In fact, the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest evangelical denomination in the U.S., supported abortion rights in certain cases, including rape, incest, and when the life of the mother was at risk. W.A. Criswell, the Southern Baptist Convention's former president, said, "I have always felt that it was only after a child was born and had a life separate from its mother that it became an individual person, and it has always, therefore, seemed to me that what is best for the mother and for the future should be allowed." 3 years before Roe v. Wade, in 1971, a spokesperson for the Southern Baptist Convention said, "We call upon Southern Baptists to work for legislation that will allow the possibility of an abortion under such conditions as rape, incest, clear evidence of severe fetal deformity, and carefully ascertained evidence of the likelihood of damage to the emotional, mental, and physical health of the mother." And so if a woman's pregnancy is detrimental to her mental health, then the Southern Baptists were supporting her right to get an abortion. So this is what's going on at the time that Jerry Falwell is losing his tax-exempt status. But it seemed like he wasn't really concerned with this at all. And in fact, it wasn't until 5 years after Roe v. Wade that Falwell preached his first sermon against abortion, framing it as a moral issue. It's almost as if he couldn't get enough support for his desire to remain segregated, but he needed to continue to convince American people that we still had a moral issue. And so he found a new cause to get behind, and that was abortion. And this was how he met Paul Weyrich. Paul Weyrich was an American conservative political activist and commentator associated with the New Right. He co-founded the Heritage Foundation. We'll talk about that one later. He coined the...
Girl, my little girl. I'm about to roll up again, girl. No shade, because this little joint, real small. Paul Michael Weyrich, whatever, Wurzerk, whatever his name is, Welch, I don't give a fuck, okay, was an American conservative political activist and commentator associated with the New Right. He co-funded the Heritage motherfucking Foundation, the Free Congress Foundation, and the American Legislative Exchange Council, and coined them the term moral majority, co-founding of an organization of the same name in 1979 with Jerry Falwell. He was also a Melkite Catholic deacon. These individuals, no shade, have been successful at getting what they damn want. They are now in the position of power in the government, to where now they're gonna start forcing people. Just like how the government was used against them to stop them from discriminating, now they have the power to ultimately discriminate, and can't nobody do nothing about it. Who's gonna challenge the government? Oh, white people. They'll challenge the government, because this government has always been for them and them only. The rest of us are just tolerated here.
The term moral majority. Interestingly enough, this is just a fun little side quest here. Paul Weyrich started the Heritage Foundation with the help of Joseph Coors of Coors Brewing Company. Joseph Coors gave him $250,000 to start up the Heritage Foundation, and then $300,000 a year after that to support it. What's really interesting about that is that through the 60s and 70s, Coors was accused of discriminatory practices. And because of this discrimination, a lot of Hispanic people, Black people, women, LGBTQ activists, they were kind of pushing for this boycott of Coors. And so I think Joseph Coors had a little bit of a grudge. And coincidentally, the same demographics of people that were boycotting Coors in the 70s are the same demographics of people that are most targeted in Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 mandate. Oh, and also another one of those groups that kind of rallied against Coors and boycotted them were workers' rights groups, labor unions, which the Heritage Foundation and conservative evangelicals really don't like. So I just, let's let all this sit in there and we can make the connections on our own. So with the help of Joseph Coors, Paul Weyrich co-founded the Heritage Foundation, and it went on to become one of the most influential political organizations in the United States. They have successfully worked to influence even the upcoming Trump administration and its policies. In a 1995 interview, this is really interesting, Weyrich, whatever his name is, acknowledged that he learned how to organize from liberals.
Liberals learned how to organize, they learned how to frame issues. They learned how to seize the moral high ground. They learned how to integrate the work of think tanks and politics inside the United States Congress with political action on the outside and so on. And all of this they did very, very well.
I think that this is...
Before we go forward, bitch, I'm sorry. Listen. This is warfare. These people are literally gaslighting us to learn from us, to see how we galvanize, how we come together, and they end up taking the elements that we create from that and use it for their benefit. This is not anything new. They've been doing this. They've been stealing people's ideas and calling it their own. This is what they do. They are not original. The only thing that's original about them is they fucking hatred for themselves, that they have to hate other people. This motherfucker back in the day was contributing money to Republican candidates who endorsed racism and queerphobia and misogyny. And now those people are in the ultimate position of power, and they want revenge. This shit is crazy to me, and no shade. That's why I tell people, we gotta get ourselves together, baby, because America has spoken, and America, since y'all talk about judgment, America's about to be judged, bitch. But the gag is, we all about to be judged. Because now there's too much information out here. At this point, it's about what you believe. Whatever you believe is what's going to manifest. And unfortunately, collectively, we are going to manifest a very scary experience. But it seems like that's the only way we're going to wake up. If people truly, genuinely, authentically understand what it's like to be discriminated against, to be judged, to be demonized, to be ostracized. We're all about to experience that. It's about to be some very crazy ass, dangerous ass times. Especially for oppressed groups of people, or the people that I call secure people. Or people who are survivors. If you want to destroy and decimate your enemy, you must know what your enemy knows. And the enemy has been studying us. That's why I tell queer people, y'all gonna have to start picking up the Bible again. And no shade. Shout out to Reverend William Horn. And shout out to the other brother name. I'm so mad his name is escaping me right now. But I was watching they live, and they are starting a new podcast themselves where they're going to be teaching the Word of God as well. And sharing the Word of God as well. And exploring it. To get to the root of it. Or as T.S. Madison would say, to Mo, to debone it. You want me to show you how to debone, Mo? Let me show you how to debone, Mo. Because I said, queer people, y'all better start studying the damn Bible, baby. Because like I said, when they say you going to hell, let them know we will see you there. Because you in the book too, boo. And if you don't know, allow me to show you. Since we're going to play the literal game, it's going to get very dangerous. People, unfortunately, don't want peace. So since you don't want peace, you're going to get what you want.
It's a huge lesson to those who are on the left today, who are really looking for a way to gain a voice, to regain a voice in the political climate, because it's very much leaning one way at this point. And throughout history, I think this is what happens. Like the pendulum swings, right? And so right now, the right is kind of rising up and the left has lost its voice. And we've gotten very tired and very afraid and frustrated. And it is created a kind of apathy. If we look at how these organizations rise up, how they influence culture and the minds of people, it's so interesting to see how we've all just borrowed from one another each time, and how even Wyrick is saying that he saw the way the left got together and mobilized and grew in numbers. And he took from that and he emulated that. He mirrored it and created one of the most influential political organizations today. He is a Catholic conservative. He has his own ideas about how to run a country. He had the financial support of someone who was very anti-progress, anti-labor union, anti-black, anti-Hispanic, anti-gay. And alongside other political activists at the time, they formed an organization that would mirror strategies used by the very groups they despised to fight back against them. And here is a really interesting and kind of scary video of Paul explaining that his goal isn't to fight for policies that benefit the majority of Americans, but that he can only accomplish his goals if the majority of Americans don't actually vote.
I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
That is not someone who seeks for a better America for all people. That is someone who has decided that his way is the only way, and he's going to stop at nothing to accomplish it. He once wrote in the 70s, "The new political philosophy must be defined by us in moral terms, packaged in non-religious language, and propagated throughout the country by our new coalition. When political power is achieved, the moral majority will have the opportunity to recreate this great nation." And he first attempted to partner with an organization called Christian Voice. Will have the opportunity to recreate.
When political power is achieved, the moral majority will have the opportunity to recreate this great nation. Weyrich believed that the political possibilities of such a coalition were unlimited. Quote, the leadership, moral philosophy, and workable vehicle are at hand, just waiting to be blended and activated, he wrote. If the moral majority acts, results could well exceed our wildest dreams.
Create this great nation. And he first attempted to partner with an organization called Christian Voice. It was headquartered at the Heritage Foundation in the 70s and 80s and is currently located in Alexandria, Virginia. Paul had a kind of falling out with the leader of Christian Voice, and so he decided to switch directions and find another evangelical leader that could help him accomplish what he was trying to accomplish. And this is when he met Jerry Falwell. And together they brought on other Christian leaders like Tim LaHaye and Pat Robertson and put their heads together about how to get more Christian votes for politicians who held their same values. Reagan's rhetoric about restoring America's moral foundation, limiting government interference, building up the military, this all resonated with a Christian America that was very afraid of these foreign threats of atheistic communism. He would really help kind of instill this morality that we needed to fight against evil forces. Their goal really was to make America great again. The moral majority grew quickly because they utilized the mailing list from Jerry Falwell's old-time gospel hour. So this political group that they formed went into the mailing list for his Christian television show, and they took that mailing list and used it to get support behind their moral majority cause. With a membership of millions, the Moral Majority became one of the largest conservative lobby groups in the United States. At its height, it claimed more than 4 million members and over 2 million donors. Some of the issues for which Moral Majority campaigned included traditional family values, opposition to media outlets accused of promoting an anti-family agenda, opposition to equal rights, opposition to state recognition or acceptance of homosexual acts, prohibition of abortion, including in cases involving incest or rape. It's a very long leap from where the Southern Baptists stood around Roe v. Wade, support for Christian prayer in schools, and proselytizing to Jews and other non-Christians for conversion to Christianity. The Moral Majority portrayed issues such as abortion, divorce, feminism, gay and lesbian rights, and the Equal Rights Amendment as attacks on the traditional concept and values of American families, and tapped into a sense of societal moral decay that resonated with many evangelicals. They were primed for this. In particular, the anti-homosexual rhetoric that they publicized through fundraising letters and Christian broadcasting had higher contribution rates than other topics, so they made more money talking about it.
Bitch. Do y'all not see what's going on, girl? Go to these people's platforms. Go to their live tabs, bitch. Type on the tab popular and see what the fuck comes up. Hardly initiated. BMU. Get the most views. That's when everybody come through. That's when everybody ready. Just girl, we saw it with Reverend Real Horn and the other queer pastor. He gonna be mad at me when I interview him. Charge to my head, not my heart. These people sitting here waiting. They had hundreds of people in the back waiting to get on. There were people that was talking while these queer pastors were defending themselves. And they were invited to the platform to have a conversation that was going to bring forth Christ energy. When really, it's a conversation or an open rebuke to show people, to use these people as an example of what happens when you do the wrong thing. Did she not just state that they would talk about anti-queer, anti-black, anti-women bullshit and make money off of it? Ooh, girl. Yeah, y'all don't really want the people to wake up, girl, because when they wake up, girl, not even what you have on earth is going to be able to protect you, motherfuckers, girl, because there's going to be such a spiritual motherfucking karma coming for you bitches, girl. Y'all not going to be able to handle it. The same hell that you've given to other people, bitch, you're going to experience tenfold. Because every time these anti-people go into y'all spaces to have conversations and try to give you the context and the nuance of our lived experiences, but the emotional aspect we bring is too heavy for some of y'all weak ass hearts and faith and shit, to where now you have to it's too much, it's too much. The Bible, put the Bible here, the Bible, no, the Bible, no girl, the Bible's not gonna save you from this. It's not going to save you from accountability. It's not going to stop karma for getting on your ass. It's not going to stop that. If anything, your fear just accelerates it, which is why they were so desperate to get into the positions of power as far as government. And they've done it before, again, with the Reagan administration and even past administrations. And that's why those who really care about humanity, we gonna find a way to have to work through racism, bitch. Everybody not gonna be able to work through it because of fear. But the ones that will are the ones that we need to talk to. The ones that are willing to work through queerphobia, even though the majority of people around them are too afraid to. Fuck that. You have to talk to the people who are willing to do that. And again, this pendulum swings left and right, left and right, left and right. If it swings left and right, we have to start understanding some sort of physics and laws to be able to either make this shit gentler or to stop it altogether. And I understand racism will never go away. Queerphobia will never go away. Yes, it will never go away, because this is the planet of lessons. This is the planet where we learn things. But as far as how you allow it to affect your motherfucking life, that is a fucking choice that you can make. No shade. I just want to say that real quick, because this shit is just like, hearing this shit is just like, wow, just seeing what's happening and then hearing it from the history of it and actually doing it, studying to show thyself approved, instead of a 30, 60 second fucking clip. And that's all the context I need. Man, get the fuck out of here.
Moral majority commentator Charlie Judd, who argued that there are absolutes in this world. Just as jumping off a building will kill a person, so will the spread of homosexuality bring about the demise of American culture as we know it. The moral majority didn't really last that long. They lasted about a decade. It says by the end of Ronald Reagan's presidential administration, Christian right organizations were generally in a phase of decline. Donations were decreasing because after 8 years of Christian right-supported leadership, the nation was no longer seen as in the same state of supposed moral peril as it was when Reagan first took office. Christians, they mobilized, they worked together, they elected Reagan. They thought everything was getting better, and they felt as though they could be comfortable. They accomplished their mission. Disbanding the moral majority in 1989, Falwell declared, "Our goal has been achieved. The religious right is solidly in place. Religious conservatives in America are now in for the duration." But the pendulum always swings. The moral majority really became a kind of punching bag for leftist culture, and they were perceived correctly as being very intolerant, very hateful, overzealous, out of touch. And so they kind of became this, again, this punching bag for comedians and media.
I'm mad. I'm upset with the moral majority, man. How can y'all sit there in your living rooms and say that it's too much sex, drugs, and violence on TV? It ain't enough.
And I think this also kind of led to the erosion of the image of the moral majority and, a lot of the public perception of them. But I want to point out something just kind of from my own experience, having been raised in fundamentalist Christianity is that within these groups, they have a very, very strong indoctrinated persecution complex. And so when you target a group of evangelical Christians and you make fun of them and you insult them and you put them down, all this does, and I'm saying this from experience, all this does is fuel them. This lights the fire beneath them. In 2 Timothy 3:1-5, it says, "Mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days." And it goes on to list all of the terrible things. You know, people will be proud and boastful, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, have nothing to do with such people. And then in verse 12, it says, "In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Jesus Christ will be persecuted." It is a sign from God that they are on the right path and doing the right thing. I used to write this in my journal. I used to write about, the people that made fun of me because I'm a Christian, and how it's just proof that I'm on the right path and I need to keep going. So while I am the first one to kind of mock the ideologies and be a little snarky and sarcastic sometimes, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that when you're kind of attacking the ideology, the Bible, the beliefs. But the minute you turn it on the person, and you point your fingers at the person and you make them feel bad, that is the moment you fan the flames. It's really interesting to see how the religious right kind of rose to power. They got what they wanted. They kind of stepped back, and the left in that time was just going at them, making fun of them, laughing at them. Again, I'm not making a moral judgment on that. I'm talking about how this perpetuates the problem and how it's not a logical way to reduce the issue or to fight it. And so I think we need to kind of meditate on that and chew on that and remember moving forward that there are ways to accomplish what we want without resorting to insult, name calling, making fun of people. We can talk about the ideologies, but when you turn your attack on a person, especially a person who believes they are blessed for being persecuted, that your anger toward them and your insults are validation of them being on the right path, we have to consider that, and we have to try to approach it a different way. And though the moral majority did dissolve in...
No shade, Kristi, I understand what you're saying. Because I don't like to give motherfuckers a smoke. But that's only when I accepted the reality of how they show up and they're not willing to show up any other way. So out of just self-defense, you're going to have to defend yourself. I understand your point, and if there is a way to achieve that, I am willing to work with whoever wants to work on that to make that happen, because that seems like that would be the most desirable result. But realistically speaking, when we look at what these people have done to other people's lives, who have destroyed the lives of other people, innocent people's lives, and then use the Bible to justify it, that Bible, again, is not going to protect you from karma. And again, we, the oppressed groups of people, have always tried to find another way to talk about it, and just, okay, well, let's go back and see if we can find a way to talk to them about this and put it this way. Because if we were to react in the way that we feel, the anger that we have, because of the mistreatment, and that we're being told that we need to shut the hell up or move the fuck on from it, or be glad you alive, some people didn't, shit, it irks people. And then the next generation and the generation after that then has to come into this world being taught that, while these people sit up here and talk about us and make money off of us. Well, again, like you said, that pendulum swings evenly from the right to the left. That is what's going to happen. We have the opportunity to choose heaven, but we rather choose hell collectively. And if hell is where we're going, I'm going to prepare myself for the mindset of hell. Because some of us survived hell. And some of us are not willing to have peaceful conversations with people who don't even see us as one of them. Who already has their scriptures locked and loaded in their damn mind like a damn revolver, like a damn AR-15 automatic, fuck a semi, ready to let out on your ass, girl, to tell you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong. Christ did say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if this is how the hell you gonna treat me, and I've tried multiple times to have conversations with your ass on how to treat my ass differently so I can show up organically and authentically in this motherfucking situation just like you claim you do, well, guess what? Eventually, I'm gonna have to change the lesson plan to be able to help your ass understand. Because again, now, all the stuff that they were talking about and that they've already done, they're going to do it again. And now you have people that are calling for actual floggings of queer people if they have the position of power. Just like how Ronald Reagan was their man, so is Donald Trump. And if Christian people were really about reconciliation, in the words like Deshaun said, they would focus their love energy, their Christ energy, on actually healing and reprimanding them, being reprimanded, which means reconciliation, if you ask me, in a peaceful way, but in a real ass way, to rectify the situations that they have caused, the problems they have fucking made. Serve a deity and serve a symbol of peace and love and justice. But I think we need to just start believing what you've been showing us, because this entire time Jesus has been white, so we understand that is the savior of white people. It will come to their rescue. Everybody else, he might come to y'all house, but he gonna definitely come to our house, and come to our house first. This is a European religion that has become so integrated in our damn society that there's 22,000 versions of it. And again, y'all can sit up here and accept 22,000 different denominations, but you can't accept the idea of there being more than two genders.
1989, wow. Its legacy lives on through all of the little branches that it helped collate that kind of were born out of that time of this reviving of political evangelical Christians. The seeds planted by the moral majority grew into a network of focused organizations continuing to shape policy and cultural narratives under the broader umbrella of Christian nationalism. Now, back to the beginning when we said that two things can be true. I think that we need to keep that in mind even now and moving forward, because many could have believed that they were fighting for a better society and healthier, happier people. I think the average American that kind of clung to this idea that we were in moral decline and in need of Jesus in order to kind of fight off the threats that were, kind of looming over us. I think most of those people that clung to those ideologies really did believe that they were on the right path and they were doing the right thing, because they were fed a lot of fear, propaganda, and false information, disinformation from the Christian leaders that they looked up to, that they listened to, and they trusted and respected. People like Falwell, people like Billy Graham. Christian leaders were making a lot of money. They were very popular. They were selling books. They were getting a lot of attention. And they had very good reasons to continue to perpetuate this information and to put it out there and to keep repeating this rhetoric to maintain their relevancy and to keep their money coming in.
Hello, we see it all the time. Clickbait titles and shit that don't mean a damn thing to the live. One of the brothers on Hardly Initiated asked this one lady that I forgot her name that we reviewed the video on, a little clip on. Do you think that you can preach the word of God and bring that organic, you know, tree to the table as type of preaching, but be a mega pastor at that and make money off of it and still have the mansion and the cars and the lavish lifestyle? This is how all these churches with these great cathedrals can continue to make money off of their community. They don't offer any sort of healing, any sort of advice that is actually genuine and realistic, or any sort of service to the community. You have a cathedral in a place where there's murder around that bitch every time, but yet the people come to your damn church. The people having funerals at your church all the time. You don't mind that. You don't mind eulogizing motherfucking black boys and black girls, young as hell, being unalived and shit by gun violence. The fucking funeral directors and funeral homes definitely making bank off of this shit. Because if it's one industry that would never run out of money, it's the death care industry. Big ass mega church, but meanwhile, it's murders happen around your church on the 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, breaking news, bitch, all the time. Which is why I told you, this is about money. This is capitalistic. The Bible is the shield that they have chosen to rewrite and use in their own way to block them and shield them from accountability. Nope, it ain't me. Nope, I'm going to heaven. I know I'm going. How? Did you read the entire book? I ain't talking about just the chapters your pastor read to you and your deacon and reverend and them read to you. Have you read the Bible yourself and look at these stories and go down the rabbit hole? Because if you do, you will understand that you are in there as well. But that's okay, because again, now they have the government. So, like that one man said from Theo Bros, I mean, you don't have to believe in what we believe in, but like, you know, we can like, you know, force you to. Girl.
I'm not saying that Billy Graham didn't actually believe what he preached. Maybe Falwell believed what he preached, but also they had really good incentives to kind of put this information out there, to spread this rhetoric that would fire up a large group of people. And people were really kind of indoctrinated to believe that that the solutions being offered by the religious right were the solutions that America needed. And so if this was true, if their solutions, the things they were trying to accomplish, if this would have created a happier, healthier, better society, then this might provide some justifications for what they were doing and how they went about it. But is it true? In my last video, I talked about this book, The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. And on page 49, it says, social science now unequivocally shows the less religious a society is, the better off it is. Page 50, it says, in studies of heroic altruism during the Holocaust, sociologists found that the more secular people were, the more likely they were to rescue and help persecuted Jews. There was a study in the Journal of Religion and Society in 2005 that examined developed nations and found that higher religiosity correlated with higher social dysfunction. And it also explored how highly secular nations like Denmark and Sweden report some of the highest levels of happiness and societal functioning. The least religious countries have the lowest rates of crime and homicide, lowest rates of corruption, lowest levels of intolerance against racial and ethnic minorities, have the greatest protection and enjoyment of political and civil liberties, and have the highest quality of life. And while these correlations are supported by extensive research, it's important to acknowledge that societal well-being is influenced by a complex interplay of factors, including economic policies, education systems, governance, cultural values, social safety nets. Religiosity is just one piece of the puzzle, and secularism alone is not a guarantee of societal success. But I do still think that it's important that we pay attention to what the facts say, the data.
Shout out, Kristi. I don't like that still of you, girl.
What about...
Okay, yeah, let's do that. That's good. That's better. don't like the other one. The other one you we don't like that. But Kristi, I'm glad you shared that, because in part 1 that we did or listened to in reference to the information she brought, the founding fathers were Christian, but not in the way that these Christian nationalists believe. They even said to these people, if this book show up, bitch, burn it. Burn it. This book is like the Necromon or whatever, the Necronomicon or whatever, that book of the dead from Evil Dead, bitch. Burn it. Don't allow people to use this book, girl. We running from this book. They gonna come. And look what happened. It's found its way here because that book is used to conquer. Not to have people conquer their own soul salvation or conquer their demons or conquer their issues or to be the victor instead of the victim, but to use it as a way to, I am endowed by a God that I can't see, but I hear, which could be a form of psychosis, girl. And that voice is telling me that I have to unalive all of y'all right now in order for me to be blessed. I told y'all this shit is deep. Again, on Netflix is a documentary called The Family, baby. This shit is deep like roots. I ain't talking about roots like Kunta Kinte. I'm talking about roots of a tree. And now the studies and the facts are saying the more secular, or the more that people can find a healthier motherfucking way to express their life experience that benefits them and those around them, life also became better. People started to become more culturally aware and accepting to see the beauty in all the cultures, because then there is something in other cultures that a culture might have that you might lack in, where now there is a blending of this and we can support each other and grow. All these people, well, look, we sit up here and care about everybody else and we treat everybody like equals, everybody would be the same, and then we'll be poor and all this other type of... No, yeah, y'all be poor because the rich motherfuckers who have the money, who have the awareness, who have all the greed, girl, yeah, you would have to actually do something that's like right and actually use your resources to walk in your Christ energy. Didn't Christ tell y'all to give up all that y'all have to the poor and follow him? But you have everything that the people have just for themselves, and they gave it to you, hoping that that will be the key to their salvation. And these people are playing in your motherfucking face. And at this point, we have seen this cycle so much. What are we gonna do? Bitch, is it raining outside? Because girl, if it's raining outside, the universe is agreeing with a nigga. Oh, it's not, girl. What's that noise, girl? They coming to get me, bitch. Listen. We have to do something different here, people. We have to do something different. This is like real life. This shit booming outside my house right now, girl. They send a damn transformer over here. Roll out. This... Wow. The power of fear.
Prayer in schools. You know, a lot of Christians believe that if we just put prayer back in schools, we'd be good to go. And so I looked at the National Library of Medicine, a study they did in 2009 on prayer and the effectiveness of prayer. And this is how it concluded. Prayer has been reported to improve outcomes in humans as well as non-human species, to have no effect on outcomes, to worsen outcomes, and to have retrospective healing effects. For a multitude of reasons, research on the healing effects of prayer is riddled with assumptions, challenges, and contradictions that make the subject a scientific and religious minefield. We believe that the research has led to nowhere, and that future research, if any, will forever be constrained by the scientific limitations that we outline.
And that is true. I'm sorry I paused a lot, y'all. I told y'all I was going to do the best I can, but just so much information that I know. There are books that I have read about healing and the effects of healing. Prayer does work if you know how to do it right energetically. First of all, when you are receiving or want to manifest something in your life, you have to find a way energetically, mentally, as well, to be open to the possibility of that happening, which means that even your expectations of how you feel like it's going to happen, you're going to have to let that go as well and allow the outcome to happen. And according to the narrative of the Bible, before Christ ever healed anybody, Christ would ask simply, do you believe? What do you believe? I say this analogy all the time. Yes, people see you as a leper. They treat you as such. They yell at you and scream at you. Don't nobody want to be around you. Don't nobody want to give you a hug. Don't nobody want to love on you. You're a pest. You're a nuisance. And yes, you started to believe it as well. But do you touch and agree with me right now that I see you as healed, I see you as whole, and I see you as complete? Do you believe? Do you have a crack or a sliver of an opening to say that you believe that this can happen? And you have to really believe, because the responsibility of any sort of healing or miracle is not really on the person who is administering, or shall I say, standing in the gap in that energy with you. It's you. You got to be able to receive it. Which means you also have to do your work as well. But organized religion doesn't even really teach you effectively how to pray. They'll teach you how to perform like you do. They'll teach you how to use vocal inflections and all type of vernacular and words and scriptures. And if you read the Bible, you can and you say them so much, it becomes memory. Now you can put them together in this whole chamber and let it all go off. And these people are believing that they can be healed, but don't know or being taught on how to be open to receive that. Not being shown how to receive that. And there are some people who become so caught up in religiosity that they open themselves up, no shade, to become possessed by demons. Y'all remember when I did the one of my scary stories or whatever, about Annalise Michel, a girl that lived over in Germany who was hyper religious. Her family were hyper religious, which means that she kept believing, I'm filthy, I'm nothing, I'm a dirty rag, God hates me, I'm this, I'm a sinner, I have to beat myself, I have to do penance, all that type of stuff. When you demean yourself in that way and you're being told that's the way you get close to God, low key, you are putting yourself in lower vibratory states, which therefore lower vibratory energies like demons, if you will, if that's what you want to call them, can finally come around. Because now you're at the lowest point and there is a vessel that is willing to be opened. Pause. Okay? That's why they call it demonic. I'm trying to remember the process of it. Demonic. What is it? Demonic suppression. While you get suppress yourself, allow those energies to bring you down. I'm this and I'm that. Your mind. I told you, the universe, God, source, consciousness, gonna believe whatever you put out, whether you believe it or not, girl. But really, what you believe. Suppression. I'm suppressing myself. Now they become demonically oppressed, which means now these other energies are joining in the bashing. Yes, open up, bitch. Open up, bitch. What can we do to get into this hole? And now demonic possession has happened. And that can happen from a very high form of hyper-religiosity. Baby, y'all gonna have to come up. Y'all gonna have to come up. Y'all gonna have to ascend. You're not gonna be able to understand it being where you at. You gotta come up. And you can. But only if you believe. Let's continue.
Is beneficial, it's harmful. It has no effect. It has a lot of effect. The data is all over the place. It might make you feel as though you have purpose and meaning and joy and hope, and that is fantastic for the individual human being. But there are no studies that show that praying does anything for the improvement of a society. So as we've laid everything out, the Cold War kind of sparking this fear of atheism and leftist ideologies in Americans, Billy Graham adopting this fear of communism and atheism and spreading it out in his sermons to evangelicals all over, to Falwell and his segregation academies and fighting the IRS and trying to get his tax-exempt status and screaming about religious freedom. The American people were really being primed for a rejection of anything that didn't look like their white Christian American way. And these ideologies were just pushed through fear and propaganda. And it didn't have really anything to do with creating a better society based in data and research and fact. And it had everything to do with a group of people that the government used to instill a fear in the minds of Americans over a threat that wasn't actually real. Maybe authoritarianism was a threat. Maybe the USSR was a kind of global force that was taking over parts of the world. But communism, atheism was not the threat. The threat was an authoritarian regime. But the government used this knowing that if they just spoke to the fear in the American people based on their own already Christian identity, it would be very easy to get them to reject this ideology altogether. So we had no possible way of falling to the threats of communism. Their eyes turned on this kind of moral decline, and the moral decline was set, that standard was set by the evangelicals of that time, who were saying it's gay people, it's black people, it's women. These people are causing such a moral decline in our nation, and we need to fight against them. We need to resist them. And this is where you see this rising of this evangelical right kind of standing up against the internal threats that they saw all around them of other American people that were not a threat, that were not out to harm them, but became targets of this Red Scare, of this scare of leftist, communist, atheistic ideologies. And so by the end of the 80s, evangelical Christians had done a phenomenal job, really, of instilling their values in the minds and hearts of Americans that might not have even been evangelical Christians, but the rhetoric got passed around. And it kind of took a stronghold on our society, and people just kind of parroted these things. They repeated these things without actually finding out if they were true. Americans were just afraid. They were afraid of the collapse of a nation and society. And they were being told that there was this very real threat that was coming to get them. And the only way to fight that threat was to stand for God and stand behind traditional Christian values. And that would protect us. But all it did was contribute to the unrest and contribute to the divide and harm Black, Hispanic, female citizens, anyone that wasn't white Christian, really. And if you think about it, during that time, 80-90% of people were Christians. There was a very, very small demographic of people that weren't white Christians. And those people received the most amount of harm and destruction from the ideologies, from the belief that America was a Christian nation fighting atheistic communism. And that the problem was that 10% of people in America that weren't Christian, rather than the problem being an outside force that is very much a problem and a threat, but that's not what we were scared of. Americans were trained to be afraid of the enemy within, the threat around them. It was the religious right that convinced the American people that the greatest threat to them was their fellow Americans. People who were already oppressed, people who were already being discriminated against, and who had just finally found a way to exist in a society where they were equal and protected, or at least, on their way to that. We hoped, right? And then the religious right immediately just knocked it down and set us back. And we spent a long time trying to climb up out of that. But every time we climb up a little bit, we get set back again. And we climb up a little bit more and we get set back again. And this time I fear we've been set back quite a bit. If we're looking through all this, like what we just talked about, it feels so similar to what we're going through right now. I have people in my comments right now that have left comments saying that I am just an evil atheist communist because I'm not an evangelical right-wing Christian. So that rhetoric has continued today, and it persisted and never stopped. People are still repeating the same exact things, not realizing where these things came from, not realizing that the things they're repeating they're not rooted in fact. They're not rooted in a desire for a better America. They're rooted in evangelical leaders that wanted power, that believed in their own religion and wanted to apply that to everyone else, and also wanted to maintain their white traditional Christian America. And it's just a fact. It's just a fact. And we go out into the world and we talk about white Christian nationalism. Immediately, there's people who are like, how dare you be racist to white men? How dare you bring this up? How dare you bring race into it at all? Well, it's the truth. And because there are people today that want to ignore that this is, a lot of it, so much of it is just rooted in racism. We have to keep talking about it and reminding people. Look at our history. Look where we came from. Look at how things have progressed. Look at how all along the way, there have been Americans that have been marginalized and oppressed and treated so unfairly all throughout our history by white people. It's just the truth. It's not about being racist. It's not about bringing up identity politics or anything like that. This is the truth. It's a historical fact. And you have these marginalized people that have just been oppressed and discarded and mistreated, who just want to be able to exist and live and have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Trans people, Black people, Hispanic people, these are not people that are causing the decline of our nation. These groups are not the problem. But there are people in power that keep insisting that these groups are the problem. So I think that about wraps up my episode today. It's a long one. We did a really deep.
Again, make sure y'all go ahead and subscribe to Kristi Burke, okay? Let me get my other music in the background on, girl. After this live, I'm about to go run to the window and see what the hell going on, girl, because it sounds like it's damn Chirac outside, girl. I don't know what's going on. Car alarms going off, dogs barking and shit. Sound like shit is fucking moving through the earth, bitch. What's going on here in Detroit? But again, I don't know what else to tell y'all. I don't know what else to tell y'all at this point. No shade. Don't just take my word for it. Oh, I'm BubzDaGawd. I'm just high-ass leprechaun nigga who just get on his platform and just talk dumb, stupid shit. He don't know what he talking about. Girl, I know what I be talking about. It's the fact that y'all can't prove me wrong about what I'm talking about when I want to be proven wrong. Just like how Kristi wants to be proven wrong. But historically speaking, this is where we are. January is about to be right around the corner, and there will be a new America. But regardless of whatever fucking America they have for us, bitch, there are some of us that's gonna always have that Harriet Tubman ass spirit to the bullshit. We see podcasts right now, red pill spaces, that's making buku money talking about homosexuality, and making buku money talking about women, in particular black women. People making all type of money speaking about Hispanic people. All this discrimination, and then have the nerve to have the Bible to justify their hatred. Okay, well, when Christ come back, baby, I'm going to be praying for y'all. I'm going to be sitting over there like Michael Jackson in Thriller, girl, when he was eating that popcorn, smiling and shit. Yeah. And Kristi, I want to believe there's a part of me that wants to have some hope that peace will come from this. That people will actually see what's going on, and then, just like Billy Graham and all those people that may have had good intentions in the beginning, that it will soften the hearts of people and allow them to actually address racism in a healthy, holistic way. Queerphobia in a healthy, holistic. Yeah. Is it holistic? I'm high, girl. Holistic, there we go. Type of way, girl. Like, there is a way for us to have this. There are other countries that are proving this to be the case. It's again what we believe. But now, you're going to have to really stand on what you believe. Again, that motherfucking McDowell's Golden Arches hairline ass nigga asked me a question. Are you willing to die for what you stand for? And the thing is, yes, I am. Because that's been the case my entire life. That hasn't been anything new. But I'm making a choice to live more so than die. Because if dying is the answer, it's gonna be death across the board. No shade. There will come a point to where you having the always and forever ain't gonna happen. Because again, accountability will come into play, girl. And some of y'all have been holding the top spot for so motherfucking long that you don't want to share with other people. And now the universe, Mother Universe, has entered the chat. Mother Universe has entered the situation. And Mother Karma is like a black woman who told your ass to have this house cleaned before she got home. And you hear her keys jingling in the damn door. And you ain't cleaned up nothing yet. So again, shout out to Kristi Burke. We definitely will be getting into more of her series as she drops them. Go over there and subscribe to her. Watch her other content. She really breaks this stuff down. And again, I really appreciate her for doing that. Okay, y'all. I'm about to enjoy the rest of my damn evening. Okay. If you like the vibe of it, well, that's the other thing. Sorry. If you can, please make sure you hit the like button because it helps this channel to grow in the algorithms. Okay, we're at 824 on the road to 1K. Again, it's quality over quantity. The quantity will come, but the quality got to be there to be able to maintain the quantity. Amen. Amen. Okay, if you like the vibe over here on BubzDaGawd, you can definitely hit that subscribe button as well as notification bell so that you can stay up to date with all of my edited work as well as my lives. Okay. If there's anything on this live or in this live that I've said that has resonated with you or you want to challenge it, I ask that you please screen record it or any of my content, and I give you permission to give your commentary on it. Just make sure you tag me in it so I know it's real. And if you feel compelled, you can definitely hit that CashApp at the bottom of the screen, all right? $ BubzDaGawd. We take anything that jingles and falls, baby. I'm going to guess what's mine. All this time, effort, and energy that I be putting out and trying to get this information out, baby, I'm going to get what's mine. The universe is going to look out for me. And I'm going to keep receiving it, okay? Andrew, real quick, before we leave, you want to say something? Hold on, Andrew. Say what? Shia.
Oh, Mashanya. Oh, I feel a Shakani up in here. Mashanya. That's one thing. And you wanted it? Okay. And you got it. You what? You wanted it? And you what? And you got it. Hell no. In no way. Ain't never been a representative for me, so speak for you, my brother. Honey, I represent all the men here. Anyway, that vibe would never leave you. Nor forsake you. So that vibe.
We serving one purpose. That's a nut. That bastard ain't number 3.5, 4 motherfucking seconds. A nut ain't shit. Think about it. You bust your ass off for a 4.5 second nut. You gotta be a sick motherfucker. Motherfucker bust your hard wide open. It couldn't be no 15-second nut. It'd be some drop dead motherfuckers around here, man. Can you imagine a 20-second nut? Just, ooh, ah, ah, oh, 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 you be a falling out motherfucker.
Oh, that clip get me every time. But anyway, thank y'all for joining me for this evening's live. Shout out to Boy Crazy in the building. Christians are easily manipulated through their religiosity. Martyr, girl, we trying to live, not die. But if we gotta die, girl, we gonna die for something. No shade. Shout out to Boy Crazy in the building. Shout out to King Deshaun in the building. What it do? Shout out to, I think that's everybody. Oh, Aries in the building. Shout out to the replay gang. Shout out to those that came through the live. Shout out to the those that were in the bushes. Hello, how are you? It's nice for y'all to say something. Y'all can say something, okay? And until next time, everybody, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday evening. Peace.
I can be anything I choose in this round. We are a sound vibration too deep to tell.